What was that one moment where, that aha moment when you recognized consciousness?
There were three significant events that they happened for me.
Okay, champ. You're cool.
Yeah.
All right, bro.
Cool.
Let's do this. Let's rock and roll. Let's rock and roll. 3, 2, 1. Mark Fraser-Grant, ladies and gentlemen. What a pleasure to have Mark here. Mark, welcome.
Thank you, Brett, my brother.
How are you doing?
We are in this crazy time. We are doing as well as one could do. My spine is straight. My consciousness is activated. My commitment is as powerful as it ever was. And if anything, I think we need to serve more than ever what you and I are doing on this planet. We are required, as millions of other people are required as well, more than ever.
Absolutely. So, Mark, I call you a master trainer of consciousness. That is the experience I've had with you in your personal life. In actual fact, I started off with consciousness coaching, and you were one of my first teachers way back then. I don't know, it was like 15 years ago or something, brother.
I think I had hair back then.
Until I was in the class and you lost it all.
Exactly, I think you did.
Yeah. It's so beautiful to see you again. So I'm going to lean straight into this, because consciousness is like the fastest growing industry in the world at the moment, and of course life is changing so much, and so many people they've heard of consciousness, but they're not too aware of what it looks like. They're not too sure of what it feels like. They're not too sure about what that looks like as a state of being. But even before we get there, so I'm just setting up so people know the subject that we're going to delve into. We are going to look at consciousness today. And those of you that are keen, you're in the right spot right now. But before that, Mark, I know you were born in Durban and then you went to Zimbabwe. How did that even happen, right?
Well, my mother's from Zimbabwe. She was born in Bulawayo, and heartbreak story. So my first challenge in life was my Hungarian circus performing father abandoned my mother in Durban. There's a long story to that. I'm not going to tell you now. Someone else can ask me those questions another time. Anyway, she was heartbroken, went back to Zimbabwe, and went back to Bulawayo to be with her great aunt, which was like her home space. And that's where she met who would become my stepfather, who was actually British. His parents were killed in the World War. And eventually that's how I ended up in the UK when I was 10 years old.
That's right. Yeah. I was going to lean into that. So from there, you actually went to school in the UK, right? You matriculated in the UK. Where about in the UK, and how was that?
Like you.
Yeah.
You know,
E for enough, just enough to get through matric,
on a
right?
council estate, which was filled with gangsters and glue sniffers, and you know, the main job of most of the people there was either like a fruit salesperson or a mechanic. And I went to this rough and tough school, and I was intensely bullied for 3 years, actually. You know, the kids, I was different to them. They didn't even know where Zimbabwe was on the map, and they picked on me. I learned to run, and I learned to hide, and I learned eventually to fight. Just out of pure survival, you know. And I was having a hard home life at the same time, being abused. So I was shown the darker side of what life has to offer at my upbringing.
Yes. And you know, as usual, it's it's those people that have gone through the suffering. And, you know, I'm a big fan of believing suffering is grace to a certain degree. It sort of forces us to go inward to look for something bigger. People that don't know you, you're not exactly a big guy. So I can imagine that you would have to, well, physically have to like try and protect yourself from being in that environment, those neighborhoods. Besides, I know later on in your career, you leaned into consciousness to help you with that. But prior to that, you were a kickboxer of some sort and martial arts. So is that why you got into that?
Exactly. Well, just one step back. I actually became a great fighter before I even started martial arts out of sheer aggression. You know, I woke up one day and I thought, this is not going to happen to me. But I was going down a dangerous path. This aggression was almost overtaking me. I was becoming violent, very, I would attack someone before they even attacked me or spoke to me. I was, you know, like a real short man with a real aggressive way of being. And I scared people. You know, I might have been small, but I was scary. I even scared myself, Brett. And then I realized, I woke up when I was about 16, 17, I thought, geez, this is going to end, not going to end well. So I decided then to get into martial arts, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, taekwondo, and learn the art of it. And the discipline of that actually saved me. The discipline of that, I learned to channel it. I learned to use it very wisely, and actually did very, very well in that world.
Yeah,
very well.
Yeah. I've heard that from a lot of fighters. It's not really about the fighting. It's the discipline and getting to know the mythology of that, of that particular practice, whether it be karate, judo, jiu-jitsu, whatever it might be. And it was that actually saved them. I mean, we look at fighters all over the world, like Mike Tyson. There's so many profound, powerful, great, successful fighters that have sort of come off the street. And it was more so that they found discipline and habits and routines, and more importantly, purpose as well, and connecting with people doing the same thing from the same sort of environment, right?
Absolutely. Totally. And I totally get what you're saying. And I must share a moment that I had, because we're going to talk about consciousness. And I didn't have the word back then. Yes. But I remember when I surrendered into the tournament that I was in, I surrendered to it. I didn't even know I had an ego, but it wasn't coming from my ego. I remember I call it my matrix moment. It was as if my hands knew exactly where to go. The movement, the flow of my body anticipated everything. There was love for the other warrior, by the way. I had no hatred in my soul. I had love for the other warrior. And it was as if something else was channeling through me. And I knew all the moves perfectly at the right moment. So I think that was my first moment of consciousness, but I didn't know it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
I experienced it,
yes,
even knowing that it had an act.
Yeah.
So I think I was lucky.
You're lucky that found you, that saved you. It's similar to Conor McGregor, right? In Ireland, it sort of saved him. The guy was a plumber in a rough neighborhood, and it actually found him and saved him. And we know all about Conor McGregor today, right? So, is that in the pipeline for you? Are you stepping in soon? Or was your skill set gone?
Floyd Mayweather a fight. Not about to do that.
Okay. Getting straight into this, right? So
yes,
those people that are watching now that are interested in consciousness, what does consciousness mean to Mark Fraser-Grant?
Yeah. That moment that I shared, that moment of consciousness, it was when we're connected to something that isn't the mind really trying hard, trying to figure things out. When we're not connected to things that we're identified with, even if I'm identified with looking good, my best move or anything like that, that gets in the way of a greater intelligence. When we are able to have a space between ourselves and that mechanism, which is, we'll talk about it later, that mechanism that's just relentless and goes wild, in that space, we're connected to something greater. In there's complete harmony, flow, beauty, knowing naturally what to do next. You don't have to think about what to do next. You would know naturally what to do next. You can call it the infinite intelligence, if you will. It's the intelligence that is always there. It's always been there, and it's always going to be there. And I don't own it. You don't own it. No human being owns this thing, but we have the ability to connect to it.
Yes.
And when we connect to it, we tend to act from a much more graceful, flowing, loving place than when we're disconnected from it. It really is the pinnacle of the human experience. You know, it is the greatest place that we could ever achieve. It's not a physical place. It's a place of consciousness.
Yeah, absolutely. Profoundly beautiful. And I've always said self-realization is the most important thing on earth. What I find amazing in the consciousness world is that your awareness and my awareness is the same awareness, right? That consciousness is the same consciousness. And that's why we feel so connected as one when you tap into this beyond the ego identity, even beyond mind and body, right? It's just something so profoundly beautiful. And so how did you discover that? You've shared with me now, you know, I know also after the UK, you came back to South Africa, you got into recruitment, but after recruitment, that's where I met you. You literally started, you woke up with regard to consciousness. So before I ask you how you became a teacher in consciousness, what was that one moment where that aha moment when you recognized consciousness, when you recognized your higher self versus Mark Fraser-Grant or whatever's on your business card or your body or your anything like that? When did that actually happen for you?
You see, there were three significant events that they happened for me. And you mentioned it earlier, suffering and grace, and they're essentially the same thing. It depends the position. I can take the position of I'm suffering, I can take the victim position, or I can use the suffering to find grace. And the first time I ever got exposed to it, but I didn't have the word, I was only 7, Brett, and I haven't really spoken about this. I don't often talk about it. But when I was 7, I was going through one of my most challenging moments. I was being abused. And it is in that moment when I wasn't Mark, in that space, it was like the angels were talking to me. They were saying, you're okay, we've got you. And there is love, there is grace. This is the frailty of humanity. You're just seeing humanity. You know, and I got exposed to this at 7. I didn't really tell people, because if I told people I experienced it, I think they would think I'm cuckoo, you know, but I had that experience. And then I had that experience with the martial arts, as I've already shared with you. And then I had, as I started this consciousness coaching journey, I had a serious car accident. I knew you, actually. We knew each other already. And I lost Haley. And in the face of death, I experienced the height of being alive, and I experienced an expanded consciousness. And now I had the word. I didn't have it before that time, but now I had the word, and I was like, okay, wow, what's going on? I'm feeling connected to the whole of life and the whole of existence and the whole of the human movement. What is this thing? Oh, it's consciousness. Now I had the word. And even though it was a really dark place to lose someone that I loved so dearly, and then being in hospital with brain trauma and scars on my head, I also saw that in a way, this was an opportunity to discover consciousness on a very personal level, how to access it more in the deepest, darkest hour. It's always there. It's always there.
So it wasn't really like, you know, I always say the eyes can't see itself, your tongue can't taste itself, your mind can't discover consciousness. You actually got it. It was a being, it was an experience, right? Deep inside of you. And now, does this, I mean, okay, so to you, it came through sort of a couple of ways through suffering, right? But for someone to get consciousness, I want to ask you, does it mean that someone has to suffer, or is it through hard work, or is it just through the timing of God, if you want to call it sacredness, whatever you want to call that, that one actually gets to see this that we're talking about organically?
You know, it's such a powerful question. And the most honest answer I have is I couldn't exactly say for another person what their route's going to be. You know, I can speak about my route. However, I do believe, and I do believe this, that we don't have to suffer like I've suffered in order to access consciousness.
Yes.
You know, I think I was just a hard nut to crack, actually. And by the grace of God, he had mercy on me and gave me these tough experiences to enable me to access consciousness. But I think other people don't necessarily have to go through that. I do believe if you're intentional, you know, and it's one of your miracles, actually, Brett, you know, if you're intentional about this, if you make yourself available for this, if you create enough space between you and your mind and your thinking and society's expectations and conditioning and all of that stuff, if you're able to create some space, consciousness can enter you, whoever you are, whatever kind of life you have.
Yeah, like detached from the personhood, right? Yeah.
Yes.
No, I agree with you. And I know that currently you have your coaching practice, you coaching consciousness through the corporate world. However, you went to Consciousness Coaching International, and for you to become a master trainer per se, just for people that are interested in getting into this game, I was astounded by the number of hours that you have put onto this game, how much skin you have put into this game. Just share with people that are interested in getting to something like that. What sort of work have you put into this?
Yeah, and at Creative Consciousness, they really had high standards for trainers, as you and I know.
Yes, yes.
I mean, the way we were measured was just, you know, off the charts, and there were about 16 levels to get to the master trainer. And, you know, and we had to really put skin in the game, as you say, to create an environment that was simply impeccable. So we learned that. But that's just one part of it, right? Overall, I've got more than 10,000 hours now, Brett. Malcolm Gladwell will have something to say about that. He's the guy who wrote the book, The Outliers. So 10,000 hours. And I would say Phenomenal. I'm still learning. Yeah. And I'm still learning, though. It's not like you reach an end. There is no end to reach. You are simply in service. And of course, like anything, you get better at a particular thing when you're in service, when you dedicated to it. And I think it's dedication rather than hard work. Because to be honest with you, it doesn't always feel like hard work when you're in the moment flowing. It's more about commitment and dedication and willingness, and also a level of humility to listen for feedback, listen to other brothers, to work in collaboration, to not go into isolation. There's many factors to this. But it requires an intense level of commitment and a willingness to walk a different path. Do not believe that you can walk the normal conditioned path of materialism, corporate politics, and ego play. I do not believe you can access consciousness if you're going to be mastered by that world.
Yes, I hear you. There's many a paths to the top of the mountaintop, as we all know, right? So exactly. Is it possible that people reach the state of consciousness, their truth, who they truly are, through things like meditation, through yoga, even through belly dancing, through singing, through something that makes their soul smile? Just another art form, right?
Of course. I think the greatest artists, musicians, when they're not there, the music plays through them, or the artist, the picture paints itself. The artist is a conduit for this magnificent masterpiece that they're creating. dancers. I experienced it in the martial arts where I wasn't really there. My hands were moving. I was like, who's moving my hands? They're just doing them themselves. Yeah. Sometimes when you're speaking, Brett, I'm sure you've experienced this. You say something and you don't even know where it came from that you spoke. You said this thing, and then someone says, "What did you say?" And I don't remember.
Yeah.
It's as if, so we've all experienced it, and there's different paths. And actually, let me just go back on what I said about corporates. I believe, whilst they haven't been in the consciousness game, I believe that what's happening is they're moving in that direction. So there could be a corporate company that becomes highly conscious. Absolutely. And the people within it get activated into consciousness, and suddenly this company becomes a masterpiece of a company that's highly conscious and makes a difference on the planet. So of course, to your point, there isn't one way. I don't believe you have to be a hippie munching on celery, for example.
Well, I'm disqualified then, brother. I'm still enjoying my dry voice and my biltong and all that type of stuff.
Again, exactly. There's different ways.
So just to sink a little bit more basic here. So what is the difference between like thinking and awareness, right? And consciousness? What is the difference between that? I get asked that question a lot.
It's a good question. And I think we've been so conditioned to think. We've been educated even to think. And the mind, we've almost over-glorified the mind. So thinking, it's a good tool. It's a cognitive tool, and we should use this tool. But what people are not realizing, many people are realizing, but that the tool is using them. If there's no space between you and the mind, then the mind is using you, and you're its puppet, and the mind is the master. So awareness for me is the awareness of the mind. So awareness of the thinking, the ability to look at thought, to look at the thinking, but to not be seduced, blinded by the thinking. To observe the thinking.
Yes.
So you can't be the observer and the thought at the same time.
Yes.
So the awareness of the observer of the thought.
Yes. So the difference there is obviously there's something observing the thinking and the feeling, right? There's a significant difference between the two. One is not needing anything. One is not doing anything. One has got everything. It's just there as presence, the witness as awareness itself, right? And what a beautiful place to live from, right? Let's speak into the times now. A lot of people are emotionally battling with our current environment, of course, with COVID. What would you say to somebody like that?
Of course, look, and it's tough for people. And, if you're losing your business, if you're in the restaurant trade or you're in the alcohol trade, and you're in certain trades that are suffering, just to use that in inverted commas, of course, the mind's obsessed with safety and security, and attaches its worth through these external things. So the mind's obsessed with it.
Yes.
So as tough as this, and maybe people don't want to hear this, and let's be honest about that. They might not want to hear this, but the truth is, it's an opportunity to go to that place that you said needs nothing, that is trusting itself, that is love itself, that is observing all of this. It's an opportunity to let go of the attachment to all of these external things that I have put so much stock in these external things. I have an opportunity to nurture and grow other parts of myself that maybe I haven't given enough airtime, that I haven't looked at, I haven't sat with. So I have an opportunity to go into silence and really connect with this thing called consciousness and let go of my human attachment and my human desires to all these material things. So it's an opportunity. It might be a tough gig for many. I get it, right? But it is also an opportunity at the same time. And I'm not saying that people should go without. I believe that maybe they can come back more creative, more conscious, more aware, and they can still go back into their trade from a higher level of awareness than pre-COVID time. Now that's the opportunity.
So those that say, but I can't, my mind is relentless, it never stops, etc., etc. Have you got like just one, maybe just some technique that they could possibly use that you use that would help them become quieter? And I agree with you, right? The inertia of seeking more than what's not happening for you outside, these emotions and the pressures that we're on will actually make you go inward, make you connect to something bigger than you, even bigger than your problem per se, right? Is there technique?
In times like these that we do that.
Exactly. And possibly that's why on the big scale this is happening, right? It surely has in my life. Whenever I have battled or suffered, it's made me go inside and connect to something, or in actual fact, I got introduced to my real self for the first time through suffering. That's why I call suffering is grace. It made me go inwards, right?
And I think
is there a specific technique? Is there a specific technique that you could share that would help someone that is going through this?
The simplest one I can think of is practice the art of looking at your thinking and not being your thinking. The space between the notes, just that. If I could give one thing. So look at your thinking. Oh, look, I'm having really negative thoughts. I'm thinking the end of the world's happening. I'm thinking my business is going under. Let me look at the thinking, not become the thinking. Let me see that thinking and decide, is that thinking all of it? Is that all there is?
Yeah.
Is there a new level of thought, a more conscious thought that I can put in the gap that I create in between the notes?
Yeah.
And it might be, I want to use one of your tools. I hope you don't mind.
No, please do.
It might be that I'm looking at the wrong place, so let me look somewhere else. And what I want to look for is, what am I grateful? So gratitude is a great place to start.
Yeah.
What can I be grateful for? Grateful that I'm still alive. Grateful for the friendships that I have. Grateful for the opportunity to discover my true self. Grateful for this time that my family is spending together for the first time.
Yeah.
So gratitude is a good place to start for beginners.
Beautiful.
Definitely.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love that. So observing the thinking and feeling, it's like being the sky, right? And the thinking and feeling are like clouds. You're just observing them. They're not you per se. So don't get stuck in the thickness of them, right?
Yes.
Well, Mark, so beautiful. I always say, like, when I see I'm nothing, that is wisdom. When I see I'm everything, that is love. And between those two, my life moves, right?
Exactly.
Mark, that brings me to today's absolute cool podcast. I want to just thank you and thank you for what you do, really creating this like really ripple effect of love wherever you go, whether it be in the corporate or individual's life. You most certainly have done that in my life. You a soul brother with me. And I just want to thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for being present here today and the wisdom you've shared with everybody that is listening. Much appreciated. I love you lots, and I will see you soon.
Thank you, Brett. It was an honor, and I really love working this road with you, my brother. And thank you for the invite, and thank you for the time. Thank you for your love.
Namaste. Peace and love, brother. If this message has touched you, let it unfold into your personal life. If you want more inspiring content, you know what to do. I invite you to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and I will see you soon. Thank you.